The night my phone lit up with my mother's name, I expected the usual. A quick check-in, maybe a reminder to call my sister. Instead, her voice came cold and clipped. "You're not invited to the housewarming until you apologize to your sister." In the background, someone laughed. My father's voice followed, easy and dismissive. "She'll come around. She always does." They didn't know that I was their safety net, the quiet accountant of their disasters. They didn't know that for the past year I had kept Maddie in that very house they were celebrating, paying her mortgage while pretending it was her success. And when I finally decided enough was enough, that party turned into a mirror showing every lie we had been living. If you've ever been called the family problem while you were the one actually holding everyone upright, you'll understand. The call came on a dull Tuesday evening. I was at my desk, reviewing client portfolios, highlighter in one hand, espresso in the other. Numbers have always made sense to me. They don't change their minds or play favorites. Then my mother, Terry, cut through my focus like a glass of ice water tossed down my back. "Megan, we need to talk about the housewarming situation." Immediately, my stomach tightened. For weeks, our family group chat had been practically screaming with excitement. Catering menus, floral centerpiece ideas, photos of Maddie's dream backyard. Everyone's phones vibrated except mine. Feigning calm, I asked, "When's the party again? Should I bring something?" The silence stretched so long I could count the seconds by my heartbeat. Finally, she said it. "Actually, Megan, you're not invited until you apologize to your sister." I set my pen down, watching it roll across my papers, as if gravity itself didn't care about dignity either. My whole career was built on logic and fairness, things my family had never learned. "Apologize for what?" I asked. "For humiliating Maddie at dinner last month," she said, rehearsed irritation crackling in her tone. "You made her feel small in front of everyone." I closed my eyes. That dinner. We'd gathered at my parents' house when Mom decided to brag about Maddie's influencer ventures, her growing lifestyle brand. Maddie had proudly scrolled through photos of her new designer handbag collection, shiny proof of success she hadn't earned. Later, when everyone was clearing dishes, I quietly asked her why she was posting luxury hauls after telling me she was behind on bills. I didn't shout, didn't shame her publicly. I was gentle, maybe too gentle. She stormed out crying anyway. Now that tiny attempt at honesty had apparently turned into my greatest sin. "You embarrassed her, Megan," Terry continued. "She doesn't want you there. Until you apologize and promise to be more supportive. Stay away." In the background, I heard Maddie's voice, brittle with smug confidence. "Yeah, she'll cave. She always does. Megan can't stand being left out." Then laughter, my mother's, my father's, overlapping like the cruelest duet. I ended the call mid-sound. The phone slid from my hand onto the desk, and for a long time, I stared at nothing. They were throwing a party in a house that I had paid for. To explain how we'd reached this circus of injustice, I have to start 2 years earlier. Maddie, 2 years younger, effortlessly charming, talented mostly at being adored, called me one night sobbing about a listing she'd fallen in love with. "This house is everything, Meg. The kitchen's perfect for my cooking videos and the light in the office. Oh my God, you should see it. I just need help with the down payment. Please." She sent the link. It was stunning. Craftsman woodwork, skylights, a yard blooming with possibility. The kind of place I had been saving for myself for nearly a decade. She had no savings, no credit. Years of unpaid cards, impulsive splurges, and online shopping rewards had shredded her finances. She needed a cosigner and cash. Every reasonable thought in my brain screamed no. Then she said, "You're the only one I can count on." And just like that, I wired $42,000 from the account I'd built dollar by dollar through 12-hour days and holidays traded for overtime. My dream house became her foundation. At first, I told myself it was fine. This was family. Families helped each other, right? But 3 months later, she called again. "The mortgage is higher than I thought," she said during our coffee date, avoiding my eyes. "And the HOA fees are killing me. Could you maybe help, just until my brand picks up traction?" Her brand was a blog with 47 followers and an Etsy page that hadn't updated since spring. Still, I set up automatic transfers, $2,400 monthly for her mortgage, $600 more for the HOA fees. When her power got shut off for non-payment, I quietly covered that too. I funded an entire year of her life under the warm glow of her fairy light Instagram stories. She posted captions like, "Work hard, stay grateful, manifest your blessings." Her blessings wore my initials. The night of the infamous dinner, her latest investment purse became the centerpiece of conversation, an $800 leather monument to bad decisions. I pulled her aside, voice low. "Maddie, didn't you say you were still behind on bills? Maybe slow down on big purchases for a bit." Her face turned sharp and red. "God, Megan, you're so judgmental. You don't get it. You think life's all spreadsheets and budgets. You make money, but you don't live." She ran from the table theatrically, tears already forming. My parents rushed after her, their precious child in distress. I stood there holding empty plates while Gabriel shot me the look reserved for villains who ruin holidays. Somehow the story morphed overnight into poor Maddie, bullied by her rich sister. Nobody mentioned that my so-called riches were already living under Maddie's roof. And now, weeks later, the punishment had arrived. Banishment. The irony was painful enough to be funny. My parents were busy planning a grand celebration for my sister's achievement, while the woman who made that achievement possible was being exiled for puncturing the illusion. I leaned back in my chair, the spreadsheet glowing on my monitor. Numbers have never lied to me, even when people did. 2 years of transfers, 1 savings account drained, and a lifetime of thankless rescues stacked neatly in decimals and dates. They wanted an apology. All I could think was, one simple cancellation. Notice in my bank system could speak louder than 1,000 sorries, because the housewarming that was supposed to celebrate Maddie's fantasy, soon enough, it was going to turn very, very cold. Somehow I was the villain for questioning why someone who couldn't afford her mortgage was buying luxury handbags. That night, sitting in my small apartment, the apartment I'd stayed in, instead of buying my own house because I'd given my down payment to Maddie, I finally understood the dynamic I'd been trapped in. I was the family ATM, useful when money was needed, disposable when accountability was requested. The night Terry called to uninvite me from the housewarming, I sat at my kitchen table and pulled up my banking records. One by one, I printed every transaction. The $42,000 down payment highlighted in yellow, 12 monthly mortgage payments of $2,400. Highlighted in blue, the HOA fees, the utility payments, even the $300 I'd sent when Maddie said she needed emergency car repairs that turned out to be new rims. When I was done, I had a 3-in binder that told the story of how Maddie's dream house had really been built. Ayla labeled it in black Sharpie, the house that Megan built. The math was devastating. In 1 year, I'd transferred $343,800 just in mortgage payments. Add the down payment, utilities, HOA fees, and emergencies, and I'd spent over $85,000 creating Maddie's perfect life. But what hurt more than the money was the eraser. In every family conversation, Maddie was celebrated for her achievement. "Look how well she's doing," Terry would beam. "She's so independent, making it work on her own." My parents had no idea that their youngest daughter's independence was funded entirely by their oldest daughter's sacrifice. The housewarming party arrived on a crisp Saturday in October. My phone exploded with photos from family and friends. Maddie posing in front of her gorgeous front door. Guests sipping champagne in the living room I'd paid for. Terry and Gabriel beaming proudly beside their successful daughter. I wasn't there, but I was busy that day. Because the week before, I'd done something that would change everything. I'd canceled the automatic mortgage payment. For the first time in a year, Maddie would be responsible for her own bills. For the first time, she'd faced the reality of what home ownership actually cost. I spent the day of her party at the spa, getting my first massage in 2 years. I got my nails done, bought myself the expensive skincare I'd been putting off. I ate at a nice restaurant and ordered the wine I wanted instead of calculating the cost. For one day, it lived like Maddie had been living for a year without financial anxiety. The panic call came exactly 2 weeks later. "Megan, something's wrong with the bank." Maddie's voice was high and strained. The mortgage payment didn't go through. "They're threatening late fees. Can you call your bank and figure out what happened?" I was sitting in my office reviewing a client's retirement portfolio. I saved the document, leaned back in my chair, and smiled. "Nothing's wrong with my bank, Maddie. The payment didn't go through because I didn't send it." Silence then. "What do you mean you didn't send it? You always send it. I sent your mortgage payments for a year while you pretended to be self-sufficient. But you uninvited me from the house I've been paying for, so I figured you didn't need my help anymore." The screaming started immediately. "You can't just abandon me like this. You know I can't afford this place without help." "Then maybe you shouldn't have bought a house you couldn't afford," I said calmly. "And maybe you shouldn't have banned me from celebrating the home I've been funding. But I need this house. It's my dream. You're my sister. I'm your sister when you need money," I replied. "But apparently I'm persona non grata when you want to throw parties. You made your choice, Maddie. Now live with it." She hung up on me, but not before I heard her sobbing. The family intervention happened 3 days later. Terry and Gabriel showed up at my apartment unannounced, their faces tight with righteous anger. "How could you do this to your sister?" Terry demanded before I'd even fully opened the door. "She's devastated. The bank is calling her every day." "She's a grown woman," I said, stepping aside to let them in. "She bought a house. Houses come with mortgages. That's her responsibility, not mine." Gabriel's face was red with frustration. "But you've been helping her. You can't just stop without warning." "Actually, I can," I said, walking to my desk and pulling out the binder. "And here's exactly why." I set the house that Megan built on my coffee table and opened it to the first page. Gabriel's eyes widened as he saw the highlighted numbers. "1,000 for the down payment," I said, flipping pages. $2,400 every month for the mortgage, $600 for HOA fees, average of $300 monthly for utilities and emergencies. Terry's mouth fell open as she processed the numbers. You paid for all of this for a year?" I said, while Maddie posted about her success and independence. "While you both praised her for making it on her own. While I lived in this one-bedroom apartment because he gave her my house fund." The room was dead silent except for the sound of pages turning as Gabriel read through the evidence. "Why didn't you tell us?" Terry whispered. "Because I thought my family would recognize sacrifice without me having to advertise it," I said. "I thought maybe someone would notice that I never seemed to have money for myself anymore, that I stopped talking about buying my own place, that I was working constantly, but never seemed to get ahead." Gabriel looked up from the binder, his face pale. "Megan, we had no idea." "That's exactly the problem," I said. "You had no idea because you never asked. You just assumed Maddie was succeeding on her own merit while I was what? Choosing to live small, choosing to have nothing." Terry started crying, not the dramatic tears she shed for Maddie's problems, but quiet, ashamed tears. "We're so sorry. We should have known. We should have paid attention." "You should have," I agreed. "But more than that, you should have respected me enough. Not to ban me from a house I built. You should have asked Maddie how she was really affording her lifestyle before you. Celebrated her independence." The silence stretched between us, heavy with years of unexamined assumptions. "What do you want us to do?" Gabriel finally asked. "Nothing," I said. "This isn't about you anymore. This is about me finally setting boundaries. I'm done being the invisible foundation that holds up everyone else's dreams." 2 weeks later, Maddie's perfect life started crumbling in real time. The late fees piled up when she couldn't make the full mortgage payment. Her Instagram posts shifted from celebration to subtle panic, selling some of her designer items, posting about downsizing and simplifying. The bank called her daily. When she tried to refinance, they laughed at her debt-to-income ratio. She looked into selling, but the market had shifted, and she owed more than the house was worth. Meanwhile, I breathed freely for the first time in years. I redecorated my apartment, bought myself new furniture, booked a weekend trip to Portland I'd been putting off for 2 years. I started saving again, this time for my own future. Terry called every few days, trying different tactics. First, guilt. She's your sister, Megan. Family helps family. Then, desperation. She might lose the house. Finally bargaining. What if she apologizes? What if we all apologize? But I'd learned something important during my year of financial slavery. Apologies don't fix exploitation. Boundaries do. The calls from Maddie stopped after that first conversation. According to Jean, our aunt who still spoke to everyone, Maddie was furious that I'd ruined her life and destroyed her dreams. She told people I was jealous, vindictive, that I'd always resented her success. The irony was perfect. She was calling me jealous of a success I'd literally purchased for her. 3 months after I stopped paying her bills, Maddie moved back in with Terry and Gabriel. She lost the house, my house, to foreclosure. The Instagram post stopped, the lifestyle blog died, the Etsy shop closed. She got a job at a marketing firm, her first real job in 3 years. According to Jean, she was angry all the time, bitter about having to work like normal people. I felt no satisfaction in her downfall, but I felt immense relief in my freedom. For the first time since college, I was living for myself instead of funding someone else's dreams. Months later, I bought my own house, not as grand as the one I'd bought for Maddie, but perfect for me. A small craftsman bungalow with a garden and a reading nook. I paid cash, money I'd saved in the month since cutting off my family's financial pipeline. The housewarming party I threw was small but genuine. Real friends who knew mystery, colleagues who respected my work, my Aunt Jean, who'd watched the family dynamics with growing concern for years. We ate good food, drank good wine, and celebrated something that was actually mine. Terry and Gabriel weren't invited. Neither was Maddie. For the first time in my adult life, I was celebrating in a space built on my own merit, funded by my own sacrifice, owned entirely by me. Terry still calls sometimes, usually around holidays. The conversations are different now, careful, respectful, tinged with the awareness that they can't take my compliance for granted anymore. "We miss you," she said during our last conversation. "You miss my money," I replied. "There's a difference." She couldn't argue with that. Maddie and I haven't spoken in over a year. Jean tells me she's doing better. She kept the marketing job, moved into her own apartment, seems to be learning what actual independence looks like. Part of me hopes she's learned something from losing everything I'd given her. But that's not my responsibility anymore, because I finally understand the difference between family and business. Family doesn't exploit your generosity and then exclude you from the celebration. Family doesn't take credit for your sacrifice while treating you like an embarrassment. Sometimes the warmest home you can have is the one built on self-respect, instead of other people's entitlement. Looking back, I realize I'd been living my entire adult life in service to other people's dreams. I thought that made me generous, but really it made me invisible. I was the foundation everyone built on, but nobody acknowledged. The hardest part wasn't losing the money. It was losing the illusion that my sacrifice was valued. But that loss led to the most important discovery of my life. Boundaries aren't walls that keep love out. They're the foundation that makes genuine love possible. My house might be smaller than the one I bought for Maddie, but it's built on something stronger than mortgage payments. It's built on self-respect, on the understanding that I deserve to be treated as more than a funding source with feelings. If this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about setting boundaries and choosing self-respect over family dysfunction. Have you ever been excluded by the very people you sacrificed for? Share your story in the comments. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's building a life so good that the people who took you for granted become irrelevant to your happiness.